Hey there, my name is Kavan and I just want to say a big welcome to Making Twitter Friends. I'm the instructor and also, of course, the creator of this course, and I hope you're excited to get started because I am. So you're here today because you want to kickstart your Twitter presence and you're wondering how to do that. Well, first, I really want to tell you what happened to almost 90% of the people who get on Twitter. First of all, let's look at the goals that they set. Usually people get on Twitter is because they want to grow thousands of people around them, as we call audience, and then try to sell them things. Well, if you have this kind of goal, it already sets you up for failure because you're not going to use the right strategy. Second of all, how they do things is that they look at all these experts tweeting something really smart like you should do this, you should do that, or here are the 5 things to do to get to what kind of milestone. When you look at that, you want to do it like them, but these are the people at step 5 or even step 10 while you're at step 0. So usually it doesn't work. And lastly, the results. When you feel like you're not getting the likes or the replies, it gets quite discouraging. So if you have been one of these 90% of the people, well, we need a new strategy. Now you might be wondering why you need to make friends online. Well, the answer is quite simple. Because behind every business, behind every transaction, there's always another person sitting on the other side. So if you want to know how to deal with them, you really need to understand them. And a lot of people would think, hey, I can just stay behind my screen or keyboard and I can put a lot of things online and I can make the so-called passive income. Well, I used to think like that when I started out, on day 1. But soon I realized that hey, actually behind every successful person or entrepreneur, there's always a group of core friends that are helping them out. So if you look at these billionaires, well, those people would be executives and other really successful entrepreneurs. But if you're looking at yourself at like step 1, well, you still need friends that are at step 1 and step 2 around your online presence or Twitter to help you out. And this is why it's so important to make friends when you're starting out. So to guide you to make friends on Twitter, I actually want to approach it from a human psychology angle. Because when I was a young boy, I was always the quiet one in the room trying to observe what everyone else was doing. So throughout this course, we'll approach it from 3 different angles. Number 1, why people actually follow a particular person like you. Number 2, there's so much content and noise on Twitter, what people actually want to read. And last but not least, when people do a certain types of actions like liking a tweet, replying a tweet, making friends, what are they really thinking about? And if you're wondering whether this is a new course, well, this is actually not. Because back in April 2021, I first created the Making Twitter Friends email course. And within the first 12 months, without much active marketing, 2,000 students took the course and were passing along to their friends. So the responses blew me away, and this is why I want to create this video course to give it to more people like you. Now that you know you cannot be successful alone and you need friends along your journey, I cannot wait to start lesson 1 with you. So let's do it. Now we're on to lesson 1, which is to discover yourself first. So a lot of people would get on Twitter and they cannot wait to establish those relationships and they want to talk to people. But what I want you to do is take a pause. Because the truth is you're actually not ready to do that yet. We have to work on you first. And the reason is because when you don't have a good impression to give to people, even though if you bring them into your world, they're going to walk away anytime. So the first thing we have to work on is to find your own interests. Like what are your hobbies? What do you like to talk about? What are you curious about? We need to bring that on Twitter. Second of all, people on Twitter are coming to you because they want to get something from you. So we need to understand what you actually stand for, that one thing that people come to you for. And lastly, we need to wrap this all up and make it appealing so that when people come into your door, they actually want to stay. And I would really go on to say that your Twitter profile actually can make or break your entire presence. And this actually goes beyond just writing your Twitter bio. It actually starts from discovering yourself. This is a very interesting study by OkCupid back in 2011. And this is so fascinating because it really explains to us what our online profiles can do to our entire presence. So let's look at this together. On the left-hand side, let's call her Miss Left. And if you look at the score under Miss Left, it is a lot of 3s and 4s, as opposed to Miss Right, which has a lot of 1s and 5s. So on average, we'll consider Miss Left to be more attractive. But the interesting thing is that Miss Right actually get 3 times more messages on the app. And people are wondering why, and the result is because actually a lot of the messages or reactions come from the people who give a 5 to Miss Right. Now you might be wondering what that means to your online presence on Twitter. I still remember the first few weeks when I got on the internet or on Twitter, I felt like I need to please everyone because I have such a small circle and every single person is super important to me. But this study shows me that I'm actually better off showing off something unique about me and attract all the 5s and not worry about the 3s and the 4s that actually are just hanging around me. And how this relates to our online profile is that, hey, actually this is a great opportunity to tune up our uniqueness, the quirkiness, so that we can attract more of the 5s. Maybe you have already heard of the 1,000 True Fans concept by Kevin Kelly. Well, it's essentially the same thing because you actually don't need a lot of people to be successful. You just need to figure out your niches. And people say the riches are in the niches, and that's fair. You don't want to fall into the trap of trying to serve everyone. Now let's find out how you can best represent yourself on a Twitter profile. But first, I want to be brutally honest with you. Actually, people don't care who you are at first, because when they don't know you, all they can think about is themselves. So what you want to do is actually focus on saying the 3 things that you frequently tweet about. So when people follow you, they know exactly what they're getting. Now I want to show you my Twitter profile in the early days, because if you're just starting out, this really captures all the things you need. A lot of people would put their title or role in their Twitter bio. For example, founder, developer, content marketer, or creator. Actually, no one really cares about your role because all they care about is what you actually talk about. So a better way to do it is talk about what you will tweet about. My 3 things would be, I use transparency to influence people. Not a lot of people talk about transparency, and I want to be that person. Next, I talk about building stuff. So I'm telling you that I'll share a lot of my behind the scenes so you can actually watch me build things as I go on. And lastly, I'll talk about newbie fathering. So I'm a family-oriented person, so you might see some of the parenting tweets, or you can even see a family photo of mine on my Twitter. Next, I really want to tell people what I stand for, so I put in the hashtag building in public to signal people that I belong to this community. Next, I want people to know me for my content and my deep writing, so I put in my Mind library so that if they're curious about what I've been writing about, they can click the link to see it more. Next is my favorite emoji, a broccoli. So a lot of people actually ask, hey Kavan, why do you have a broccoli on your Twitter profile? Well, first I want to stand out and I want to have a bit of quirkiness in my profile. And turns out a lot of people are curious and they ask me about it, and that creates a really interesting conversation starter. Lastly, I would put DM open because as someone starting out, you want to be inviting. You want people to start conversations with you. So I encourage people to do that. And lastly is the banner image. You see a lot of different types of banner image. Some people would have an arrow pointing to the follow button. Some people would have a picture of the beach. At that point, I was thinking I want to be someone who is more philosophical. I want people to perceive me as someone who can break down the concept of building in public for them, and that's why I have this on my banner. So let's do a quick recap of lesson 1. The first thing we learned today is you have to be interesting. So there are a lot of people on the internet, on Twitter, and you want to find a way to stand out, and the best way is to dig into your inner self and see what's quirky about yourself. Number 2 is if you're learning about how to make friends, you really want to be human in your language, in your behavior, and to show people that you're a very inviting person. Number 3 is what we said. Like no one cares about you in the first place. So in the beginning, you really want to state clearly what your offering is and make sure that you stick to that 3 topics all the time. Well, number 4 is your Twitter profile. So you have your banner image, you have your profile image, and you have your pinned tweet. Make sure you utilize those real estate to give people a great first impression. And now is action time. I want you to take a look at this and really take action before moving to lesson 2 so that we can start seeing some results. So let's look at this together. Number 1, I want you to write down 3 core topics that you would often talk about on Twitter. Number 2, write down a topic space that you want to own and see how you can add that to your profile. For example, for me, it's building in public. Number 3, add 2 elements to show your unique and human side. An emoji, maybe, or some languages like family or babies or farming. Number 5, add in an action so that visitors can know more about you. You can add a website link or you can kick off a conversation. So now it's action time. Before you move on to lesson 2, let's take some action today so that we can see some results right away. So let's look at this together. Number 1 is write down 3 core topics that you will talk about on Twitter. Number 2, add in 1 topic space that you want to own. So for me, that's building in public. Number 3, add 2 elements to show your unique and human side. Maybe you can talk about your family, baby, farming, serving, whatever you want. Number 4, find out which emoji that can best represent you and put it on your profile. Number 5, add in 1 action so that visitors or anyone can learn more about you if they want to. So it can be a website to your personal blog. It could be DM is open to invite conversations. And lastly, hey, pick a new profile picture or banner image that really represent yourself. Show your face, put on a smile, and now people are going to be attracted to you. Oh, hey there. Now we're on to lesson 2, and let's talk about how to build the right circle around yourself. You might already have hundreds of followers on Twitter right now, or maybe a few dozens. But my question to you is, can you really say they're your friends? Because let's look at followers versus friends. To me, followers are someone who might like your tweet, but they're actually not trying to learn more about you or initiate a conversation. But on the other hand, a friend would really want to know more about your work. They're asking about you. They would reply to your tweets. They're extending the conversation, or they would even cheer for you when you launch something. I'll even say that your first 100 Twitter friends will be so important that they will determine your circle going forward. Because if you think about it, the tweets that you start seeing from now on will be from these 100 Twitter friends. And that means the people that they're hanging out with, they're meeting, they interact with, will have a higher potential of becoming your friends. So this is really important to think about who you want to be friends with first. Do you want to be friends with parents, entrepreneurs? Do you want to be friends with marketers? Do you want to be friends with bootstrap entrepreneurs, developers? You have to think about that. And now let's drill down a little bit more to understand what kind of friends you want to be surrounding yourself with. And just a quick reminder, a lot of people here might be thinking, hey, Kavan, I want to use Twitter to sell eventually. Maybe not now, but eventually. And I want these people to be my potential customers. I would say that's a wrong move because at this point of time, you're not looking for customers yet. You're looking to establish your circle of friends, and then you can start looking into target customers. If you start off with the mindset of, I only want to get in touch with my potential customers, that's too limiting, and that's going to limit your presence and your network and your growth. And to be honest, finding friends on Twitter can be really difficult. So here I have the best way to help you out. So the first step I would do is to look for influential names under a certain topic. So if you're thinking about content marketing, SEO, building in public, there are always like 5 to 10 names that you can come up with that has a very active circle around them. So these are the people that you want to keep it on your radar. The second step is you go into their latest tweets and you start checking and interacting with the people who actually reply to this influencer. And step 3 is actually to befriend with these people. because they're usually smaller accounts. They're really curious, they want to learn, and they're super active on Twitter because they're replying. And the tip here is a lot of people would focus their attention on the influential people here, but I would actually suggest to don't worry about that because these people usually have maybe 20,000, 50,000, or even 100,000 of followers. They tend to not have that same attention to you as opposed to a smaller account with like 600 followers. And to wrap this up, I want to remind you to not follow everyone you can find in the replies of an influential person. Because remember, we talk about the first 100 Twitter friends, and you want to be careful who you have in your circle. You want someone who is supportive, you want someone who is curious, active, engaged, and will be there for you. At this point, if you're thinking, hey Kavan, this sounds really hectic, this sounds like it's going to take up a lot of my time, then I would say yes. Well, good things start small, good things takes time, and I guarantee you the first 100 friends are a bit harder to find, but eventually this will get easier and easier and things will start to snowball without you touching it. The first way to start building your circle is to remember the magic number 600. Why 600? Let me explain more to you. Well, you're looking for people with less than 600 followers, and they also follow less than 600 people. These are the small accounts that I mentioned previously, and they're the best people for you to network with. And the reason is because, well, these people started not too long ago, so they are still looking for connections, they're very curious about the platform, they are hungry for more. Second of all, these people don't get a lot of attention yet, so if you're the one who is replying to their tweet or talking to them, they will be super excited to start to go further with you. And also, when we talk about the notification feed, if you talk to big accounts, most of the time they don't see your tweet because their notifications are exploded. But these people have a very manageable feed and they would for sure see that you're replying to them. And lastly, for people who have more than 600 followers or follow more than 600 people, usually they have figured out how Twitter play a role in their business. So they're very busy scaling up whatever they're doing right now, and they don't really have time to interact with you as much. So I still remember when I first started out on Twitter, I have this friend called Pranav, and he's actually a 15 years old boy in India. And he's super curious, he's super eager to learn, and he's always around my tweets. And he's always networking with new people as well. So he was one of my first 100 Twitter friends. I have here an example of Mattia, who is an early friend of mine in my circle. And I want to show you why we picked the people under 600 to start with. So here's Mattia's account, and he has now 1,300 followers. But when we first started being friends, he has maybe 200 or 300 followers. And yesterday I saw a tweet from Mattia, and because of his really friendly approach, a lot of people are replying to his tweets and are having amazing conversations. And I just opened up each of them to see like where they are in their journey. So Fab here has 3.2k followers, Welly 1k, Maha almost 1k, Dagobert is kind of an outlier with 40k, and then Dimitro has 1.4k, and lastly Christine 1.1k. So these are all familiar faces to me because I also have them in my circle. And honestly, I met most of them when they were like maybe 200 or 300 followers. But you can see how everyone is moving forward and we're still friends and we're still supporting each other. And this is why you want to focus on people under 600 because they're going to be the people who stick with you and grow together. So the second way to build your right circle around yourself is to make the first move. So this is really surprising to me because a lot of people get on Twitter and they focus so much on tweeting. They just focus on what they want to say, but they don't really care about making the move on people. But to me, everyone loves being reached out to. So if you can be the first person who click the follow button to show your interest, if you can be the first person to get into their tweets, to reply to them, to extend the conversation, to ask something about their life, instantly people like you already. And maybe 6 out of 10 of the people that you reach out to don't reply to you, but hey, Focus on the 4 people that you actually establish a relationship with. So now let's talk about being vulnerable. This is a fascinating topic because a lot of people getting on Twitter are super afraid of opening up as themselves. They feel that when they open up, be vulnerable, they're not as confident, and this is not the person that other people want to learn from. And this is actually wrong. Because if you think about it, the more you show your vulnerability, the more authentic you are, and the more people and friends you attract into your own circle. Think about your relationship with your best friend. Why are you best friend with this person? Because you are able to sit down and have a deep chat and show all your struggles and mistakes and open up to this person. So it's actually exactly the same on Twitter, that you just need to open up to invite people in. So here I have a really good example about being vulnerable by Spencer Jones. So here he basically summarized in a tweet thread about the recent failure that he had. And this really shows me that, hey, if you want to be different, you really need to show your vulnerability, because all these people are only showing their good sides on Twitter. And second of all, sharing struggles or even asking questions is a really great way to blend into an existing community. If you think about maybe back into your school days, when you form a circle at a bonfire, when someone actually open up and talk about their deep stories, everyone else is instantly connected to this person. But if someone else is just sharing something superficial on the surface level, then there's a wall between this person and everyone else. And my favorite part about being vulnerable is that when you're sharing struggles and asking questions, it is actually the best conversation starter. People actually come in and want to help out and want to show support, and then that's a really good touch point for you to establish a better relationship. Now let's talk about the actions you want to take before you move on to lesson 3. The first thing you want to do is find 15 potential friends, and if you have time, find 30 to follow them first. Then second of all, go to their latest tweet and say something meaningful. Extend that conversation right there in their tweets. And if you're tired of going on Twitter every single day, then I have a trick for you. Block out 45 minutes on your calendar and title it Twitter Interactions, and maybe do it 1 or 3 times a week. Up to you, up to your schedule and your goal. And during that 45 minutes, that's your chance to engage really deeply. You should be able to go to at least 20 conversations and reply there. And lastly, I just want to remind you that yes, this is a painful beginning, finding friends and interacting with them. But trust me, once you have the first 100 Twitter friends, things will start to happen. Hey there, now we're on to lesson 3, and let's talk about the secrets to building relationships online. There's one thing so beautiful about online relationship, and that is, it's really hard to go away. For example, if you imagine yourself building offline relationships, you have to go to dinner, you have to grab a drink, you have to get coffee in order to maintain that relationship. And now let's imagine you have a friend online called Denise. And all you need to do is actually a small engagement every month or 2 to maintain that relationship. And it is highly unlikely for Denise to wake up one day and want to remove you from her life forever. And the beautiful thing about online relationship is that it has a very strong compound effect. Well, first, you have the capacity to build a lot more because you don't need to get drinks or coffee. And then the more relationships you have, the faster the circle expands. But one thing you have to be super careful with is when you get a new follower, it is actually just the beginning of the relationship. So you might be celebrating like these 2 guys, like, yay, new follower. But actually, the relationship is super fragile because this person basically say, hey, I'm interested in you, I want to learn more, but this is kind of your ticket to show me more. So as you can see, this is actually just the first touch point of your relationship with this person. So if you want this relationship to get further, you want to find ways to make them feel good about you. Let's talk about offering help voluntarily. So this is something interesting on Twitter. I get a lot of direct messages, and a lot of times people would ask me to do something like, Kavan, can I ask for your feedback on my new product? Kavan, I have a product hunt launch. Can you upvote it for me? And deep down, I'm thinking, I'm getting so many messages every day. Why do I need to help you? There's no relationship established yet. So the key here is the best way to form a new relationship is when you have no ask. You're not asking for someone to do something for you. And I have a really good example here, which is me reaching out to someone to ask for something. So the blue text is actually me, and let's read it together. So first I was saying, hey, I stumbled upon your podcast, but the site doesn't work for me. Is this the right link? And then the other person replies, hey, Kavan, thank you. Where do you see the broken link? And then he said, oh, thank you. I fixed it. And I jumped into asking him for something. I said, I was brainstorming ideas of how to spread building in public to more people. And I really want to see if I can get on your show. And basically what he said is, I typically don't accept requests to be on the podcast, but I want to return you a favor. So what about a 10-minute call so that we can start to exchange ideas? And I was like, yeah, that's good. Let's do it. Now I want you to pause for a second and think about whether that is a good way to build a relationship or not. What do you think of that interaction? And to me, I actually consider that a bad example. And let me explain more. Well, first of all, I wasn't offering help voluntarily. The conversation was happening so fast that it might seem like I was only offering help with the broken link because I wanted to get on the podcast. So I was actually offering help intentionally instead of being a nice person. But one thing I learned is that people actually love to return you a favor if you help them first. It is actually human nature, which happened here. It is just that I approach it too intentionally instead of trying to help voluntarily. So if you're someone who reaches out to new people on Twitter because you want something, I would say let's not think about that right now and start reaching out to people because you just generally want to make a new friend. So when you're reaching out to a new friend and you're thinking about how you can offer help, I have a few examples here where you can try. The first one is if you have experience in a space, you can actually write down some insights or your experience or your learnings to share it with that person. Or if you know a thing or two about their competitors, you can share some names and share some honest views comparing them. The last thing is if there's something broken on their website or in their piece of content, you can let them know. But you can see a common theme here, which is something that you can offer to help the other person move forward. That is always a good starting point. Here comes one of my favorite topics in this course, which is the power of retweeting and tagging, which are two functions provided by Twitter. And I would even say that this is the mastery of human interactions, and I will tell you why. So now let's imagine you're watching the Oscar, and now you're seeing the winner walking up on the stage and start thanking people, name after name after name. Have you ever thought about why they need to really name every single person to say their appreciation? Well, first, these people really help him or her get to that achievement. So without them, it's impossible. But second of all, which is more important, is that these people and these relationships can further along their acting career. Maybe they have a new movie to work together with. Maybe there's some opportunities that they can share. So this shows that it's very important to give credits to the people around you if they deserve it, and also to lift people up as much as possible. And the best thing about doing this on Twitter is that it's absolutely free. If you retweet someone's tweet, it's free. If you tag someone, it's free. So why don't we want to do more of that? And now we have to talk about a special function on Twitter called retweeting. And if you look at my Twitter wall over here, you can see that under my profile, I actually retweeted Ollie's tweet, which has nothing to do with me, but it has my favorite people, Marie, Arvid, and Ollie, and they're talking about building in public, which is something that I talk about all the time and what my audience is interested in. So I just want to retweet it to show some support to get more people to join this event. Second of all, you can see that here I retweeted Vinit's tweet about having great relationships. And relationship is awkward, 9 simple ways to make it enjoyable. Well, since you're in this course, you know that I care about relationships. So for me, this is a great tweet and I really don't mind showing it to my audience as well, giving Vinit a lift. And I do this because I don't see my Twitter wall to be my branding or my resume. I see it more like a library of knowledge, and I'm the librarian curating the best things about building in public, getting heard, having great relationships on social media. So whenever I see something that is relevant to this, I would want to add it to my wall so that people can see it. And now here's actually my question to you. With this new angle, do you still hold the same perspective about tweeting? And I would like to tell you more about what people think of someone who actually retweets someone else's tweet. Well, for one, if people see that you're someone who are able to lift up other people, they know that you're a people person and they love you even more. Second of all, retweeting is actually a great signal to the author because you're showing them that, hey, you created something valuable and I really want to help you out. And that's usually a great touch point to kick off a relationship or even just to maintain a relationship. So now I'm sure your head is spinning because you're thinking of so many ways you can retweet someone's content. And I also want you to be careful because I see so many accounts where they retweet, and out of the latest 10 tweets, 9 of them are retweets. And that's something you don't want to do because it actually dilutes your own voice. So in the ideal world, I would say 80-20. If you can talk about your own stuff and create value 80% of the time, then you have 20% of the time that you can support other people and lift them up. And now let's talk about tagging, because you might see a tweet like this all the time on Twitter. People asking questions about who is the go-to for certain things. And here's your golden ticket to actually support someone else, because you can actually go in there and tag someone that you know and say, hey, this is the go-to person for video editing. Hey, this is the go-to person for building in public. And this is actually a great chance for you to open up a conversation in private, because think about it, that person will probably appreciate your effort, and now you have something to talk about as you kick off that private conversation. So usually I don't recommend tagging big accounts because think about it, would they know that you actually lift them up a little bit out of the noisy world they live in? Probably not. So this is actually an opportunity to lift up the small accounts around you. One of the things that you need to remind yourself over and over again is that you have to be interested in them first. And this is because we all have self-love. Like most of us care about ourselves more than anyone else. We naturally feel good when someone cares about what we do, and we like to talk about ourselves all the time. And I have an example here today I want to show you. Here, basically, Salik was telling me 3 hours ago that, hey, Kavan's blog is very interesting and his book Find Joy in Chaos. So when I read this, I don't know Salik, but I was like, really interesting. Nice meeting you and thanks for sharing my work. What brings you to all my writing? I'm curious about you now. So I'm being interested in them first so that I open up to him, and he told me everything he's trying to go through. And you can see here, the conversation really extended. I haven't had time to reply yet, but I'm going to. And you can see how a new relationship is being built here. So if you're new into a relationship, basically the rule is don't talk about yourself and keep asking questions. Learn all about the other person as much as you can. But of course, you don't want to be a robot and just do it for the sake of doing it. You want to be genuinely interested in this person because, as we mentioned, you want this friendship to go a long way. Now that you're pretty good at forming new relationships, let's talk about how you can strengthen and deepen these relationships. And guess what? A lot of people actually would go through their list and try to clean up who they're following. I actually recommend people to do it because you want to keep your circle tight. So when people do this, they're usually thinking about a few things before they decide who to unfollow. And I'll give it to you so that you can be mindful if you can achieve these 3 things in people's mind. The first one is you're offering so much value in your content that they simply cannot unfollow you. So you're sharing good stuff every single day. The second one is you become this really good friends with the person. And even if you don't have amazing content, you're there to support, to lift, and you're just a good person to have around, so they're willing to keep you. And lastly, basically, you're just full of joy to be around with. You're funny, you're interesting, and even if you don't have great content or you're not supportive, they just want to be around you. And this reminds me of a quick story I had when I was 18 years old. So back then, a bunch of guy friends and me would go to the club, and we would be standing around and trying to approach girls and try to make conversations. And usually that end up with them just walking away awkwardly. And later on, as I gain more experience and try to figure out the magic of human interactions, I realized basically we just need to have fun. We just need to enjoy ourselves. And when other people see that we're just full of joy, they just automatically come to join us. So that was my first moment to know that, hey, you just need to have fun yourself instead of trying so hard to get people to join you. And it is because everyone wants to be around people who are fun, lively, and friendly. So if I have to sum it up for you, I would say be knowledgeable, have a unique personality, and be a good friend. So far, we've talked a lot about building new relationships and also maintaining them. But what about ending a relationship? Because on the internet, on Twitter, a lot of online fights can happen. And on Twitter, it is especially easy to have misunderstanding. And I would say it's because of the 280 characters that Twitter set to each tweet. So if you think about it, a lot of people are condensing their thoughts in such a short tweet. So a lot of context is actually taken out from that tweet and it's on purpose. And lastly, it is so easy to cause people to have opposing views because the context is gone. So a lot of fights tend to happen, and this is what I do when I kind of sense that a fight is coming my way. So first of all, a person might show that they're challenging my thoughts, so I can sense that, oh, the argument is coming. And then I would take a deep breath or even walk away from my computer or my mobile phone because I need a moment to myself to think about what to do next. And when I come back, I usually click the like button on the tweet just to let the other person know that I read it. And then I would not reply and move on. So here's a tip to you. Twitter fights only start when you reply, and they're never worth it. So here are the actions for lesson 3 before you move on to lesson 4. And let's look at it together. So first, out of all the new people that you follow, find 3 of them and take your time to learn all about what they do. And I want you to message them and offer your help. For example, is there something broken about their products or profile or website? Can you give them some honest feedback to one of their products? But please, nothing offensive. And is there a piece of content you think might be relevant to what they do and you can help them out? Next, I want you to practice a little bit about retweeting and tagging. So find 2 tweets that you find valuable and try to retweet using the quote tweet function. This way, you can write in why you really enjoy this tweet and give the author some credits. Also, if you stumble upon tweets where people are asking for recommendations, tag 3 of the friends that you just make and also spend some time to explain why they're worth following so you actually lift them up and you promote them. Hey, now we're on to lesson 4 and let's talk about how we can write tweets people actually want to read. So here are 2 tweets which I call wisdom bombs. They're not something that you want to write, but let's look at them together first. On the left-hand side, I have the bulletproof morning routine. Number 1, get up before the rest of the family. Number 2, avoid checking your phone. Let's go to the last line. Develop the discipline to start each day right. And then on the right-hand side, you can see, are you tracking your time today? There are 168 hours in a week. Happy people don't waste time at a job they hate. They have a common pattern here, which I call wisdom bomb because honestly, everyone can write it. These are just inspirational tweets and they don't have stories, they don't have context. It's easy to copy and paste and basically there's not much value other than just to trigger that little inspiration in people. The thing about this kind of tweet is that it's hugely dependent on whether that account is successful or not. So for example, if someone with 100,000 followers say this, people would be like, yay, But if someone with 50 followers is saying that, no one is going to like, no one is going to reply. So how do we actually write tweets that people find valuable? We are going to cover this in the next few videos. A great way to write a valuable tweet is actually to reflect on a real lesson. You might not think so, but your everyday stories and learnings are actually super valuable content for a lot of people out there, because there are a lot of people actually just a few steps behind you and they want to see how you're doing things. But now you might be wondering, what are the everyday stories? And I have 4 things I want to share with you. The number 1 is you can set aside a time, preferably 6 p.m., so that you can reflect what you just learned or encountered during the day. And then in your story, you can actually talk about what is causing this to happen. And then you can also talk about how you handle the situation. What is the exact things that you did? And lastly, you can have a very quick reflection about how you can do a better job next time. So the everyday stories actually map really well to a topic I also talk about a lot, which is building in public. If you're interested, you can actually click the link below here to access the free guide where you can learn all about it and also get started today. And here I have a real example here to show you how I actually reflected and then share this with everyone out there. Recently, I hear a lot of people saying that they want to move to LinkedIn because they're not getting a lot of impressions on Twitter. So I reflected about this and I tell people, hey, actually, I think this is the best time to invest and stay on Twitter. So I actually wrote my thoughts out and I say, hey, we're all seeing this. There are so many wisdom bomb bros out there. We're not getting impressions because of the algorithm change. But I love it because we are staying here and we're making this a better place, and the trend chasers are leaving the platform. And then I wrap it up with 3 different ways where I still see a lot of engagement, like 50 replies, 50 likes. And I just tell people how I see it. And you can see this tweet actually does pretty well because it's getting 27 replies and 73 likes. Another way you can write super valuable tweet is actually teach a quick concept. So when a lot of people scroll their Twitter feed, other than being entertained, they also want to learn something new. So you want to give it to them in a very short tweet. Usually I would say if you're new on Twitter, people won't give you so much time. So you want to keep your tweet very short. So like Josh Spector here, let's read it together. Here's the simplest writing tip I can give you. Delete the word that. When you remove it, 90% of the time your sentence will be stronger. For example, you believe that I'm lying, but I'm not. Becomes, you believe I'm lying, but I'm not. So this is a really good example because it's short and it's very actionable. Like people can actually grab it and do it today. And this is something that you want to aim for. When you grow and when you have more trust and relationships that can help you out, you can start writing a bit longer and people will still give you the time to read it. Another way to create really valuable tweet is actually to ask a question. So a lot of people are intimidated by this because they feel like by asking a question, they are being vulnerable, they're being weak. But actually what I find is that when you're asking question, it really gives you a chance to bring people closer to you and open up that conversations, and they even get to know you. And the best case scenario is that everyone contributes a lot to that answer and people can learn from each other. So I also have a good example here, and this tweet is about where did the term building in public originated. I heard a lot of people talk about it, but I'm not exactly sure. So a lot of people go in and explain the concepts and hey, everyone learn a thing from here and you become the connector of the whole community. Alright, so now we're on to the actions for lesson 4 and let's look at this together. First, I think you should really level up on how to write valuable tweets, and in the Build in Public guide, there's actually a chapter giving you more tips on how to write better, so you can check it out for sure. Second of all, we have talked about different ways to write your tweets. So you can put together 3 tweets or 3 tweet threads using the 3 approaches and share it across the next few days. And here are some questions to help you think about a lesson to share. What are you most proud of at the moment? Did you do something specific to make that happen? What was a struggle recently and what did you learn? What was one mistake you made in the last month and what was the takeaway there? So once you get a hang of how to make friends on Twitter and how to write valuable tweets, I think it is a good idea to invest in a Twitter tool or what I call a scheduler or automation tool to kind of bring you to the next level. So I'll drop you the link here where I kind of talk about my content creation process and what the tool actually helped me out with. And you can check it out when you get to the right stage. Hey, congratulations. I just want to give you a round of applause because you're doing so well and you get to the end of this course. And I'm so proud of you. And now I want to do a quick recap with you about the entire course because I feel like we've achieved a lot together. First of all, you know how to set up an attractive Twitter profile that is really you. Second of all, you know how to make Twitter friends. Then you know how to build meaningful relationships on the platform. And you also know how to approach a relationship that is super genuine. So if you like this course, Making Twitter Friends, that's kind of your entry step into the Twitter world. And if you like to level up even more, I pretty much package all my learnings and experience into this book, Find Joy in Chaos. And the goal is very straightforward. Basically, Twitter is a very chaotic place. There's a lot of noise, and there's a way to find joy, which is find success in your own ways. And I want to bring it to you so that opportunities and connections can come to you naturally. You can check out the reviews on Amazon and Goodreads, and you can get the book on Amazon or Gumroad. So I leave you the link here in case you want to check it out. And you can type in findjoyinchaos.com. And lastly, I really want to encourage you to reach out because I want to know where you are in your journey. So you can find me on Twitter at meetkavan and then send me a private message and then we can kick off a conversation there. Alternatively, you can also send me emails at kavan@publiclab.co. And if you put a broccoli emoji in the subject line, probably you will get my attention. So I have a higher chance of replying to you. Thank you so much for Making Twitter Friends. And I hope we're friends now. So I'll see you around. Bye-bye.